iPhone SE 2022 versus iPhone SE 2020, all the differences. These phones look almost exactly alike. The new iPhone SE 2022 edition, and the older iPhone SE 2020, and I doubt anyone would be able to even tell them apart if you see the two side by side on a table. That's how similar they are. And while keeping the classic iPhone look has its benefits as the design remains super compact and lightweight compared to most other 2022 phones, we are here to explore all the differences between the older model and its newer refresh. Look under the hood, and you'd quickly notice the newer processor, added 5G connectivity, improved camera, all of that while miraculously having the newer iPhone SE 2022 model actually being a tiny bit lighter than before. But are there any pitfalls, and what are all the curious little differences and details? And should you upgrade from an older iPhone SE, or probably even an aging iPhone 7/8, etc.? Let's waste no time and get to exploring these compact phones that look cute, but pack a lot of firepower inside. Design and display quality. Being traditional and classic are often considered good things, but it's really about the choice of words. Being classic sounds cool, but being old is not something you want to hear. Yet, time has taken its toll and it's a situation where we have a bit of both here, the classic, and the old. First, because such large bezels and such small screen definitely look a bit out of place on a 2022 phone, be it even a budget model. But the secondly, being classic, means you get to have a phone that is super thin and lightweight, and we almost forgot it was possible to make these. The difference in build quality is tiny. The newer SE 2022 actually features a newer and more durable glass, so hopefully it won't shatter the first time you drop it, but you're probably going to have it in a case anyway. The colors are also similar, the black and product red seem downright the same, but you no longer have a white model, but instead a slightly muddier, starlight, shade of white. And yes, the physical dimensions of these two are exactly the same, but the weight is a tiny bit different, 148 grams on the older model versus 144 grams on the newer one. How is that even possible? Alright, the screen. 4.7 inches, LCD, 750p resolution on both, with the tired, Retina, label on it. This is definitely an old kind of situation rather than a classic. First, this screen is just a bit too tiny for people who actually do stuff on their phones. Second, LCD? Come on, LCD screens have a ghosting effect while scrolling. Colors on them appear bleaker than OLED, and they are just not as vibrant and enticing. No HDR support on either phone either. It is what it is, one of the bigger compromises of a budget phone. Display measurements and quality. No difference in the biometrics either, but that might be for the better. The Touch ID fingerprint scanner here is fast and accurate on both phones. And it doesn't care whether you have a mask on or not, it works just fine both ways. Performance and software. So you probably remember that the iPhone SE 2020 kind of shook the budget smartphone market 2 years ago. Whoa, a phone with a budget price and a flagship chip? That was kind of new. It's not new now and it was almost expected for the SE 2022, yet it's impressive nonetheless. But also, many people will say that it doesn't really matter, or they don't care. And we see that argument having value too. After all, most basic tasks will run just as good on the 2022 model as they do on the 2020 model. So while the A15 chip is no joke, it's more about future-proofing this device through a long update cycle ahead of it, but also about enabling a bunch of cool new features that work a bit under the hood and on the camera front. Now, we know you want to see the benchmarks and see if the compact form factor of the SE won't actually throttle the A15 significantly, and we will have that soon, just keep patient for a while. In terms of software updates, that's where the 2022 model has the upper hand. The SE 2020 will eventually get dropped in probably 2 to 3 years, while the newer version will stay relevant for probably 5 years to come. That's a big argument that should not be overlooked, especially if you stick with phones longer. On the connectivity front, both models have 4G LTE, but the SE 2022 also brings 5G power. Admittedly, without the fancy mmWave magic for urban areas, but you probably shouldn't be too upset as coverage is scarce on that. It does have sub-6 type of 5G that will keep you covered in far more places. One thing missing on both SE versions is UWB, or ultra-wideband, something useful for faster AirDrop functioning. Camera. If you harbored high hopes the newer SE would bring more cameras, well, it doesn't. What it does, however, is bring most of the computational magic out of the iPhone 13 flagship family, including computational photography magic, optimization of pictures for color and detail, and the smart HDR4 engine that enhances color, contrast and noise. You also have support for photographic styles to create your personal photo style. Not only that, but the A15 also lifts up video quality on the SE 2022, reducing noise and especially so in lower light. Both SE versions use optical image stabilization, OIS, rather than the newer sensor shift tech on the iPhone 13 series, in case you were wondering. If you pause the video for a moment, you would easily notice how much more saturated grass and colors in general appear on the SE 2022, giving the picture a more lively, vibrant feel. During the continuous autofocus test, you can also see how the new SE adjusts for sudden changes in exposure more gradually. Overall, the SE is a subtle improvement over its predecessor, and both remain one of the most capable phones in this budget price range, despite their limitations. Audio quality and haptics. Apple has made one of the best loudspeakers on smartphones with the iPhone 13 series. It's just incredible the oomph and power you can get out of those speakers. But the magic hasn't fully carried over to the SE 2022, which is just too thin and compact, and looks as if it retains the same sound quality as the previous model. Decent, not great. Both the new and older version feature a bottom-firing speaker working in close collaboration with the helper speaker in the earpiece. And on the headphone jack front, come on, you didn't really expect Apple to suddenly bring back the jack, did you? Battery life and charging. One of the main limitations of the iPhone SE design is that it is just so thin and compact that you cannot fit a large battery inside that body, and the new iPhone SE unfortunately carries that limitation over. However, despite all that, Apple somehow managed to deliver better battery life. That's exciting, as this was the internet's #1 complaining against the SE 2020. Official Apple numbers show that the new iPhone SE lasts 15 hours versus 13 hours for the SE 2020, for video streaming. The iPhone 11 in comparison has a battery that lasts for 17 hours of continuous video playback, same with the iPhone 13 mini, and the bigger iPhone 13 can go all the way to 19 hours.